Welcome to the Redbird Report, your destination for the latest on the St. Louis Cardinals. Here are your hosts, BK and T-Bone.
For the first time in nearly a month, your St. Louis Cardinals lost a series. It's a foreign feeling right now, T-Bone. We're doing this show, and it kind of feels disappointing. The Cardinals just lost 2 out of 3 after winning Game 1 in dramatic fashion against the upstart Pittsburgh Pirates, and they did so because they didn't pitch all that well. They didn't hit very well. They didn't play defense very well. There was some bad base running in the series, but other than that, over the last couple of days, it was mostly just blah. They were outscored in this series by the Pittsburgh Pirates by a combined score of 19-11. They scored 2 runs today. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon. They scored 0 runs last night. And so for the first time in a while, I'm opening up the show in a rather pessimistic way by asking you the question, is this a blip on the radar? They've lost 3 out of 4. The 1 win was in extras, or is there something more here? And there's a little bit of cause for concern among Cardinals fans that, hey, this unbelievable story, Cardinals were 9 games above 500 as recently as a couple of days ago. We might be watching the end of that dramatic start to the season.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this is a blip on the radar. There are some concerning things that's going on with the Cardinals. Look, the rotation showing signs of regression. I think we all kind of saw that coming. I mean, look at how they started the year. They weren't great to begin the year. They weren't particularly great in this series. Libby looked good for 4 innings and then fell apart. McGreevy gave up 10 hits in his start, and then you look at Dustin May, you go, all right, he's gotten through 5, looking pretty good. Gives up 2 more earned runs in the 6th inning, gets pulled before he can get through it, and doesn't have a quality start. That one's not as surprising. It's more the offense. The offense and their fundamentals, if you want to call it that, the defense, as you had mentioned, which was just sloppy all series long, along with the base running, as you had said. That one feels like a blip on the radar. I do wonder about the offense if we're starting to see not so much it regress, but the back part of the order really become sort of a black hole for them. You know, outside of your big 4, the OPS has not been good for them this season. If you include Gorman in that for the month of May, it's 600. OPS are lower for everybody else at the bottom part of the order. And I think as we saw with them early on in the year, it was, hey, they kind of beat you. It is death by 1,000 cuts with damage. And right now you're seeing less damage and a bit of black holes starting to show up at the bottom of the order. And if this offense can't be something that will be able to carry you through games like we saw in this Pittsburgh series, I don't think they're going to be able to win a lot of games with just relying on their pitching to do it. So my hope this is a blip. I think there are some warning signs, though, starting to emerge of, okay, if they go through a stretch where they lose 7 of 10, it's going to look a lot like it did here in this Pittsburgh series against the Pirates.
So you mentioned the lack of depth in this lineup. I think you really felt that over the last couple of days. You'd get up into the top 4, and it's JJ, Herrera, Burleson, Walker. And when those guys come up to the plate, I assume they're going to do something. Now, it wasn't always scoring runs, as we saw by the fact that they literally did not score a run on Wednesday night, but they are able to produce. They come through with some kind of a hit, they get on, whatever it may be. The problem is you don't have guys behind them that are getting on for the top of the order. When this team was at its best, it felt like you would flip over this lineup and it's like, all right, churning through, grinding those at-bats. You get to the second half of the lineup, and it wasn't always production, but they were finding ways to contribute, even if that was a sac fly or whatever it was, right? They come through in key critical spots. In this series, that did not happen. And so now you're feeling the lack of OPS from the bottom half of your order, where sometimes I can look at the numbers and be like, that's surprising. I didn't see that, or I didn't feel that in the game. I've always referenced this, whether it's on this show or on BK and Ferrario, Joel Pozo a year ago. If you did not look at the baseball reference page and you just went by, how did that guy make you feel when he was at the plate? I would have told you that guy's going to come through in big spots. And so I assumed his numbers were pretty good last season. They were dreadful, absolutely dreadful. But anytime it was a big spot, he came through. And so it made me feel good inside. I felt warm and fuzzy when that big guy came up to the plate. Well, the same thing at times was true for the bottom half of the order this year where, yeah, they're not always coming through, but they're grinding at bats. They're finding ways to contribute. And then it stopped. And abruptly, I came to my senses over the weekend or over the last couple of days where it's like, ooh, that needs some improvement in the bottom half. Josh Jacobs of Redbird Rants put out the numbers on this. On the season, outside of Walker, Burley, Herrera, and JJ, every Cardinals player has an OPS of 680 or lower. I dug into this a little deeper. The Cardinals only have 4 regulars, which means at least 100 plate appearances at this point in the season, with an OPS of 700 or better. It's the 4 big guys: Walker, Burley, Herrera, JJ. The only other teams that are currently at or above 500 for the season with 4 or fewer players with an OPS of 700 or better that are regulars in their lineup are Tampa, Milwaukee, Philly, Cincy, San Diego. Those 5 teams, and then the St. Louis Cardinals would be the 6th. When you look at those 5 teams and what they do, Tampa's an elite pitching team. Milwaukee has an elite pitching staff. San Diego has an elite bullpen, even if their pitching staff overall has not been elite so far this season. And then there's Philly and Cincy. Set those aside for a moment. I'm not sure anybody really believes in Cincy so far. And Philly is just a weird thing entirely. I don't really know what to do with them. That's like a championship contender that hasn't played well so far this year. So that's the company you're keeping. And the reason why I don't think people in Tampa, Milwaukee, San Diego are freaking out as much about their lineup, and Cardinals fans might be feeling more of that right now, is because they've got something else they can lean on. And when you look at the Cardinals, they need to lean on the lineup because I don't think they can lean as heavily on the pitching staff as Milwaukee or Tampa or San Diego can. If you do, you start to see what's happened over the last couple of days where you can't consistently win games 3-2, 2-1, 1-0. That's not the type of formula that this team can follow because they don't have the strikeout stuff that's necessary to win that way consistently. They don't have a Jacob Mizorowski, right? They don't have a guy that's going out there throwing 103 for 6 innings and striking out the world. If you did, maybe that'd be more sustainable. So you need that depth in your lineup. And right now, T-Bone, they're really lacking it.
Yeah, and this is a hard thing to sustain for 162 games, is relying on the offense to carry your pitching staff. I mean, there's not many teams that you can point to or think of in recent memory where you say, well, that pitching staff, that wasn't very good, but the offense got them to October, or the offense carried them close to October. Typically, those teams that we talk about are the teams that make the playoffs, and it's their pitching is the thing they lean on. I mean, you mentioned Philly, for example, for this year. Well, the reason that they've started to win under Don Mattingly, their pitching is starting to piece it together. Wheeler came back, 1.99 ERA in 5 starts, on top of Christopher Sanchez, who has a 1.82 in the best ERA in baseball, and Luzardo is slowly starting to figure it out. So that's what they're leaning on. So the Reds are the only team in that group, and where I'm with you, I agree with, I don't really trust them, but guess what? How they got to the playoffs last year? Wasn't their offense in the Great American Small Park. It was the pitching staff. And this is the thing that's been the alarm bells for me from the start of the season. And it's why I think when you ask me, is this a blip on the radar or something of concern? I said it's something of concern for the offense because it's the one thing that can't slump. If the offense goes into a slump, then you need your rotation to be what it did in that 17-game stretch where they were a top 10 rotation in baseball. Not in terms of the strikeout stuff. They're not going to have that. But can they at least keep the ball on the ground, give you competitive outings? And if they do, you're seeing the Cardinals have a back end of a bullpen that's emerging with Soriano, JoJo, O'Brien. At times, you might be able to put Stanek into that conversation. At times, he looks good. He's not in my circle of trust yet, but he's working his way back towards that. Problem, though, is as you saw in this Pittsburgh series, if the rotation's not good, and then you start to chase the game and you go to your chase relievers, they're really not good. And then games really get out of hand on you, and you really put that pressure on this offense. It's the one thing for them that cannot slump this year because the pitching's not going to be able to uplift them consistently. They can do it for a stretch, but if the offense goes cold for a month, that's when you'll start to see things spiral out of control on the Cardinals.
It's also a situation where they're not coming through with runners in scoring position. Like, if you sequence it correctly, you can get away with this stuff where you're not slugging, you're not doing all these things, but hey, we've got runners on, we get them over, and then we get them in. The Cardinals were doing a lot of that. They would have those productive outs where they played the ABC baseball early in the season, and it was effective. Well, lately, they're not getting those guys in as often. And that's a hard way to live when you're also not getting them on very often. Right now, if you're getting them on, you damn well better get them in, because you don't know when that next opportunity is coming. Like, we're talking about this again on Thursday, Wednesday night. The Cardinals had a chance. They had the bases loaded with one out, Mason Wynn coming up. He did not do anything. He struck out in that at bat. So you don't score a runner. Then Cesar Prieto comes up. He puts a great swing on it. Sometimes it happens. You got to live with the results, but put a great swing on it. It goes deep into the outfield, and the outfielder makes a catch. Boom, end of the inning. No damage, 0 runs scored despite having bases loaded, 1 out, 6th inning. I believe at the time it was a 3-0 game. So you had an opportunity to either close the gap or even potentially take the lead in that spot. And that would have allowed them to then go to their big guys coming out of the bullpen, which might either maintain wherever the game was at or help them get up even higher. But they didn't do that. So when you don't come through in that spot, there was no other real chance later on in the game, and then boom, game over. Same thing was true today, where they had some chances, they just didn't come through. And when you're doing that consistently, you better get great pitching. And over the last couple of days, we've seen some of the issues with pitch to contact. And this is not like a Moneyball analytics versus old school stuff. I don't mean for it to be that kind of a conversation, but you just have less control over the results when the ball is put in play. And when Michael McGreevy is on the mound, I like Michael McGreevy a lot. The ball's put in play a ton. And sometimes that's going to work out really well, where he goes 6 innings, does not give up a run. He's pulled after 74 pitches, and you wonder why he was pulled. And it's because 13 balls were hit at 90 plus miles an hour. And that was the case on Wednesday, where it wasn't as effective because those balls that were put in play, they became hits. And now suddenly you're down 7-0, and you've got a whole lot of nothing going on offensively. And today, I thought Dustin May was great for about 5 innings. Got into the 6th, then it all fell apart because the ball was starting to be put into play, and the Pirates were able to extend that lead.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about those guys, to your point on with the pitch contact, you just never know what's going to happen, right? And that's the probability game. And that's why teams are chasing that swing and miss, because baseball is a game of cutting down on probabilities. And it's almost trying to eliminate luck, essentially. And I know people hate hearing that, but that's the game of baseball right now. That's what you're trying to do. And for a guy like McGreevy, I'm with you. I like him a lot, but you see this a lot with these pitch to contact guys. Once they start to lose command a little bit, because that's how they live, is the soft contact that you see them get, it's not necessarily their stuff. If their stuff was elite, it would be their missing bats. What it is they're so pinpoint accurate with it that it kind of puts hitters in conflict at what they're swinging at. And you see this all the time with McGreevy. When you watch a McGreevy start when he's on, you watch that K-zone that they've got on Cardinals TV, it's all in the black, right? Mm-hmm. It's barely touching it, and then he starts to slowly expand out, and that's when he starts to get a little chase and swing and miss in his game. But when you watch that start against Pittsburgh this weekend, he's behind in counts a lot. He's down 1-0. Now he's forced into the zone, right? And he starts to miss maybe a little bit. Maybe that sinker doesn't tail towards the black. It tails into the middle of the plate a little bit more. And then there's that harder contact. And now it just becomes that game of probabilities. And you saw this with a guy like Michaelis in his career. When Michaelis was at his best, that's what he did. He painted corners, didn't strike a ton of guys out, and then limited it to soft contact. But the moment the command starts to go a little bit for those guys, you really start to see those numbers go up. And I'm not saying McGreevy will go from a guy that was like a 1.9 ERA to a 5 ERA this year. Odds, though, that he's going to be below 3 are very low. He's going to settle in more in that 3.5 to 4 ERA, and that's pretty much most of their staff. Like, I think the ceiling for most of these guys, best case scenario, is like a 3.5 ERA. Odds are, though, they're going to be more in that 4 ERA range, and I don't know if that's good enough for a staff as a whole.
So what do you do? Because I think this is the next question that a lot of Cardinals fans are asking today is, okay, so they clearly have some issues that they ideally would solve. we presented the problems. They don't have a staff in terms of the starting rotation that gets swing and miss. I don't think there's a solution for that, not internally, and I'm not sure there's ever going to be for the 2026 Cardinals. You just got to live with the probabilities. This is who they are. They're hoping to solve that with the guys that are currently in the minor league system, but that's not a 2026 solution. That's a 27 and beyond solution, most likely. In the bullpen, I think there are some things you could do that we'll get to. And in the lineup, I think there is some stuff you could do to help. I don't think there's anything right now that solves the problem, though, necessarily. T-Bone, if you were in Chaim Bloom's shoes today, and I tasked you with, hey, is there a way to fix these problems, or at least to help in some of these areas? What would your solution be prior to this trip out to the Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati?
Well, the one thing I think you have to start doing is the bullpen and start making some changes to it, because I do agree that is one area they can start to make some moves. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to work, but as we've seen with Svanson's been one of their worst relievers so far this year in the bullpen, and there's not a whole lot you can point to that underlying numbers that would tell you at least this is going well. So I would be making that move, because if there's one area where you can at least, we've seen this before with bullpens. If there's one part of a pitching staff that you can flip that goes from pitching to contact to swing and miss stuff, it would be the bullpen. And I think if you're the Cardinals and you start to see the warning signs on the rotation, to me, there's not a lot you can do there because you're waiting on guys to develop. It is, okay, we're going to have to start going more of 5 and dive, and we've got to get more swing and miss in this bullpen. So do we try a guy like a Matt Bowman, for example, who just got released by the Minnesota Twins, who had decent strikeout numbers down in the minor leagues on his minor league contract? Do we recall Fernandez and see if he can generate a little bit more swing and miss? Because right now, you've got to get to a scenario where when you do bring in your chase relievers, they can keep it close for the offense, since that's how you're going to have to win. For the bottom of the order, I don't even know that there's many answers that can happen there right now, if I'm being honest. Once Newpark comes back, that will help, and you become more of a top 5 lineup, and then that eliminates one of those spots. But right now, I don't think I don't think Bryan Torres helps you. He helps a little, but not enough to bring up the numbers that we're not having this conversation. I don't think Blaze Jordan helps you there. You don't have a spot for Baez. I don't think Crooks helps in this situation. If they wanted to try it, I would get it. But I think they value Paz's defenses too much. I think the only area you're looking at for the Cardinals that they can fix internally right now would be that bullpen.
To me, I think you look at the bullpen and Ryan Fernandez is just such an obvious solution to it. Now, does it solve everything? No. But it gives you another arm that you can throw at the problem. And Matt Svanson is very clearly not a guy that you can trust right now. Matt Svanson, I don't think he even trusts himself currently. And I think that's a big part of it. I think he's in his own head. You saw today he ate a couple of innings there for the Cardinals. They needed that. But that's typically the kind of thing you see right before a guy goes out to Memphis. And my anticipation is Svanson will probably be optioned. You may even be listening to this after Matt Svanson has already been optioned down to AAA. My guess is you'll probably see Ryan Fernandez recalled because he's doing well down at the minor leagues. I think we both agree. I thought he was fine last time that we saw him at the major league level. It was a brief call up, but I think he's a guy that can help you. Another right-handed arm that gives you some potential length there as well. So I would call him up. I don't think you make any other move, though, right now. I don't think that this is a scenario where you need to DFA Brule or Pashard or Ryan Stanek or anything like that. Like one fresh arm into that bullpen can help freshen things up for that group, and that's kind of it. Do you disagree with that? Do you think you need more of an overhaul to this bullpen?
I think what they have on their roster, I'm with you. I think it is just Fernandez for Svanson. I would be at least exploring and keeping an eye out if I'm Chaim on the lefty reliever market. Because if I can find someone that has a little bit more swing and miss, even if like their numbers aren't there, like they tried it with Freddie Peralta's brother, right? His numbers were decent outside of Colorado. They claimed him, they tried to stash him, and then it ultimately ended up, they put him back on waivers when they needed Schuster for innings. I think that's what they were trying to do, is find someone that's got a little bit more swing and miss so they can either stash him or eventually replace that guy with Brule. Because every time I watch Brule, I go, this guy, I don't trust him. And I know he pitches to contact. I think you're keeping an eye on it, but right now they don't have an answer internally to do more.
Okay, that's the pitching side of things. I think we're both in agreement. Fernandez up, Svanson down. That's the move probably prior to the start of this Red Series. Man, the position player side of things is interesting. Everybody's going to bring up Jimmy Crooks. I get it. He's got an OPS over 1,000 down in the minor leagues right now. If you want to just bring up a left-handed bat, he's probably the best left-handed option for you. In this weekend, you're going up exclusively against right-handed pitchers. So just as a platoon advantage, it would make a lot of sense to have him as an option for you this weekend. The problem is, where are you playing him? Because 2 of the 3 games this weekend, you're going to have Herrera as your designated hitter. The one other opportunity is with Palante as your starter. You could potentially fit Jimmy Crooks into the lineup as your DH on that day, but are you really bringing him up to start him 1 out of these 3 games at the Great American Ballpark? Are you putting him at first base when you have Alec Burleson there? Like, are you putting him behind the plate? You're just saying, hey, Pozo, you're going to be our third catcher now, and we're DFAing Joel Pozo, I guess. This is where I get lost with the support behind calling up Jimmy Crooks. I don't think he's going to get the playing time that's necessary for him to be a regular player up here. And I don't think it makes sense to call him up right now. I wish it did. I wanted to. I think it'd be great to see him in this lineup. I just don't know how you get him regular playing time.
I think if you were in Cardinals years of past and trying to make the playoffs, and I know how that sounds, but if we're being honest, I don't know that they're trying yet.
I would say if that is your ultimate goal, if that is the number one thing you are aspiring to, that's what's changed. If
that is your goal, if we want to be a playoff team, you would make the move. They don't seem to be signaling that yet. And the reason I say that is, how are the Cardinals going to win games in 2026? It's with the offense. It's not with pitching. You can't convince me it's on pitching. And if that's the case, I would understand giving a shot with Jimmy Crooks. And what it would be is, it would be you're sending Pages down and you're replacing him. But if you're not going to say the ultimate goal is the playoffs, and it is more about still developing guys, and we're waiting for the pitching reinforcements to come, which is a year or 2 down the line, I'm with you. I don't know that I see the spot to do this, because this pitching staff still trusts Pages. Now, he's a negative WAR player right now. I don't know that that's fair.
I don't care about the defensive metrics for catchers.
That's the thing. I
don't care about defensive metrics for the most part in general, but certainly not.
Now, I will say the eye test has said that he's not been as good defensively, in my opinion, this year.
I even think some of the game calling stuff, again, untrained eye, they know more about this stuff than I do. I think some of that stuff has been a little weird at times as well.
Yeah, and I think that's when they would get to that spot to where it is, okay, if they believe his defense is taking a step back, or the game calling is taking a step back in that as well, that's when maybe they considered calling up Jimmy Crooks. But right now, I'm with you. I don't see the spot for him, and there's no need to bring him up here in the Pozo role of being the third catcher, and you give him pinch hit opportunities that barely occur. I mean, look how little Pozo pops up on this team. If they were going to make a move on Pozo, I think that's Blaze Jordan potentially. That would be the one that I would understand if they made that move.
So that's the one that I was going to bring up. If you want somebody to come up and be in a utility bench capacity that's playing or hitting from the right side, I think that's probably Blaze Jordan. Now, in this particular matchup against the Reds, I don't know how much value a right-handed hitter will have for you, because you're certainly not starting him against these opposing pitchers. And so maybe you're talking about for 1 or 2 relievers, you're having him for that spot, but then you're dictating that based upon, okay, if 1 or 2 of those relievers come up and you've got, I don't know, Nathan Church or Victor Scott coming up to the plate, then I will make that move. But that's kind of it. You're not pinch hitting Blaze Jordan for JJ Weatherholt or for Alec Burleson. You're probably not even doing it for Nolan Gorman, realistically speaking. He just had a home run the other day against a left-handed pitcher. So it's such a very specific usage that I don't know that he makes sense prior to this particular matchup either. That's more something that I would wait on until you're going up against a few lefties in a row and you could really take advantage of his bat. So to me, the guy that I would target, you go down to the minor league level, already on the 40-man roster, which we know helps. It's a path of least resistance. He's almost 29 years old. He's having success right now down at the AAA level. He also has not been in the AAA lineup either of the past two days. Now, why would that be? Bryan Torres. He's hitting .335 on the season, an OPS over 900. He can literally play anywhere. He is like Jose Fermin in that he can play. He has in the past played first, second, short, third, left, center, right, DH if you really needed him to. He can do anything that you ask of him on the diamond. I think Bryan Torres is the guy that they call up. He hits from the left side. He can help you in this specific series. I think Bryan Torres should be the call-up, and to me, I think this is once again a super easy one. You send down Thomas Saggese because he looks lost right now. It's not just at the plate. If that was the case, maybe you could convince yourself to give him some more time, but it's also what he's doing defensively, and it's what he's doing on the base paths, where he got caught just like walking too far off of third base the other day to make an out on the bases. That cannot happen. That is inexcusable. And when you start seeing stuff like that, that's the moment where I start having a wandering eye of, okay, what's going on down at AAA? Who's having success? And if that player's having success at an advanced age, while also being on the 40-man, that's an obvious potential replacement. To me, that's Bryan Torres.
Yeah, and I'm okay with making that move. I don't think it really impacts the roster a ton. But to your point on Saggese, he's just a negative right now. He's not hitting, as you mentioned. He's making a weird play on the base paths. And defensively, it's not like he is a guy that you're bringing in as a defensive replacement that brings value like a Michael Ciani used to when he was on the roster. All right, well, I just named the 3 things that you need from a position player, and I didn't put any of those in the positive category. And if you still believe that there is room for his game to become not an everyday major league, but a big leaguer, a guy that could be in that super utility role, which is what we thought he could be at the beginning of the year, it's time to send him down so he can get plate appearances, so he can figure things out at the plate. His defense, I think, is going to be fine. I think the base running is fine. It's more the bat. I mean, he's just not a bat you can trust right now, and they're not using him at all. I mean, he's getting the same amount of plate appearances as Pozo. So I think I'm with you. I'm okay with making that move. Does that impact their overall roster really at all? Probably not. And that's why when we started this conversation, I said, there's not a lot of moves you're going to make to really help this offense. This is just one of those I think it's probably better for Saggese in the long term to send him down so he can try and get more reps.
That's the thing. Like, where's he starting?
Nowhere right now.
I don't think you probably make this move with the belief that he's going to be playing significant playing time this weekend. Now, the one potential caveat to this, again, full disclosure, we're recording this on Thursday afternoon. We're not sure what's up with Nathan Church. He was scratched right before the game today, so I have not seen any updates on Church. If he is expected to go on the IL or anything like that, twofold. One, I think maybe then you look at something a little different, and maybe you do consider, I don't know, a Blaze Jordan, or even making the big move and going with Joshua Baez and giving him a brief stint out in the outfield for the Cardinals. If it's not anything serious, though, and it's not going to require an IL stint, I think you could see Torres starting in left field for you this weekend, and that's the way that he ends up getting some significant playing time, especially against these right-handed pitchers.
Well, and the other thing for me, as you said that, one, if it is something that is serious for Nathan Church, I don't think they call it bias because I don't think they want to start the clock when you're going to basically send him down when Newpark comes back. So I don't think they would do that, and that requires a 40-man move. I think even if it doesn't, or even if that happens, I think you still call up Torres, because what platoon would you feel more comfortable in right now? And I get it, you haven't seen Torres play here, but would you feel more comfortable in left field where they would probably platoon it of Fermin and left against lefties and Torres against righties, or Fermin and left against lefties and Saggese against righties? My answer would be I would just try the new thing, right, with Torres. I don't know that it works, but I know that Saggese's not working right now, and I don't even know if I feel comfortable starting him over Fermin against a right-handed pitcher in this current state of things. So I would say no matter what, you probably make that move and just try it with Torres, and then he can be a guy that can potentially platoon if something serious is wrong with Church.
Those are the two moves I would make. I'll be curious to see what the Cardinals decide to do. I do think it is time for some kind of a roster churn with this roster. We will see what it looks like as the Cardinals travel to Cincinnati to take on a Reds, continuing along in this 12-game stretch against exclusively NL Central opponents. Cardinals against the Red in Cincy beginning on Friday night. All right, coming up next, Tarps Off has become quite the movement here in St. Louis. I got to tell you, man, I want to give full credit to a few different people involved with this, and we'll get into that coming up on the other side here on the Redbird Report. T1, I want to give a lot of credit to a few different individuals involved with this Tarps Off movement. First of all, to you. Any of you that were involved in the outfield over the last week, you deserve all the credit in the world, because ultimately that's how this all began. Is with an organic movement. The Stephen F. Austin players come to Busch Stadium over the weekend. They decide, screw it, we're going up to right field. There's an empty section. We're going to take our shirts off and we're going to get rowdy. And then a bunch of people started flowing into that section because it looked like a hell of a lot of fun. So for anybody that was a part of that, that's how all of this became possible. Kudos to you. Beyond that, though, Ollie Marmol, for stepping up and saying post-game, hey, whoever that was, I want to make sure I will do anything in my power to make sure you're back over the next couple of days. Not only did he say it, he then put his money literally where his mouth was and bought up the section for Cardinals fans over 2 days. So that was great. Then, for more Cardinals fans to go out there and for the Cardinals to say, you know what, this is so good. This has been such a positive for our team. We are actually going to make a designated section within the ballpark where people had already purchased tickets for that section. We're going to email them and say, hey, we've moved you. We apologize for any of the inconvenience, but we're going to give you tickets in a different section because this is now a general admission area. And it's exclusively for people that want to go out there and be in what is effectively a baseball supporter section, similar to what you would see either in a student section in college football or college basketball, or for a soccer game in MLS or the EPL. It's amazing. Even today, as we watched that crap game between the Cardinals and the Pirates, there was not a whole lot to get excited about. Cardinals lose each of the past 2 days. This one's a day game against Pittsburgh, not exactly a team that you don't get to see a whole lot, a team that you see a lot on your schedule, and not one that had a whole lot of stars in the lineup today, and it wasn't a Skeens day. It was packed out there, man. It was packed, and primarily with young kids, probably I would say between the ages of like 16 and 25. Many of whom just want to go out there, have a good time, grab a couple of beers, and root on the Cardinals. Kudos to each and every one of you that were out there this week. My hope is that this is sustainable. I have no idea how long it will continue to be what it is. If it was able to stand this test today and still look that way against the Pirates in a midweek game, I would imagine it's going to be pretty damn cool when the Cardinals return back home to play against the Chicago Cubs for a 3-game series over a weekend. My guess is that'll get a little rowdy out there. That's great. Good on you if you're somebody that's going to be a part of it. T-Bone, what has been your impression of the Tarps Off movement and what has taken place at Busch Stadium over the last week?
I think it's been great. I think it's great for the Cardinals, and I think it's great for the game of baseball to find a way to connect to the younger generation, and the fact of it that it has become, like you said, almost a supporter section that we have seen that has emerged in right field. And it's well done by Ollie Marmol, as you had said. It's well done by the kids from Stephen F. Austin who ended up doing this to get it started. And then it's well done by the Cardinals to try and continue it by clearing out that entire section in right field so that fans can go there during the game and not just go there, buy general admission ticket from anywhere you want, and then head down there, right? As we see it continue to grow as the game goes on. I think it's great because I think the Cardinals needed something like this. Because I think back to the last couple of years, their brand of selling you towards come to the ballpark has been, we're a winning organization and we always have stars on the field. And it's about what we've done in the past, right? We're always above 500, as Mo would always sell you. We've got stars that are on the field, and Goldschmidt aren't out in the MVP race. By the way, Albert comes back on his reunion tour and hits his 700th home run. And then you go into 2023 and the rails fall off. You can't sell that you have a winning brand of baseball anymore. By 24, I'm not really sure you could sell Goldie and Arenado as the superstars that they once were. And then you look at 2025 and you really didn't have that there. And it was, you needed something. And I think the smart thing about it, if you want to call it that, is they didn't try and force anything early on in the season of this is how we're going to sell you to come out to the ballpark. they would say, hey, it's a young and fun team, we hope, and that's kind of what we want to go with. This was just a natural thing that kind of emerged, right? It wasn't forced. It was a bunch of kids that said, screw it, we're taking our tops off, and it just became a thing. And then the Cardinals capitalized on it. So baseball really needed something like this, because as much as I love the game of baseball, and I watch games when the Cardinals aren't playing, I'll be watching a game tonight when I get home, there are a lot of ballparks that need something, because it's just this kind of blah atmosphere. Well, the action has picked up. It just kind of feels like you're there, and it's almost bingo almost, right? You're waiting, and there's just little excitement until something happens. You needed something to bring energy, right? College football games have this to where there's energy from kickoff up until the game is over. You know, you can see this at sporting events like soccer as well. There's no reason this couldn't be a thing. It happens in Japan. You know, when you watch the World Baseball Classic, when they go over there and they play, and it's kind of the one time you can kind of see that atmosphere on television here in the States. They've got cheerleaders jumping up on top of the dugouts. There's drums that are being banged, trying to get the crowd into chants. We're not at that point yet. I would love to see it if that continues, though. If we see this grow from tarps off, waving shirts, cheering the whole time, to let's bring a drum into the stadium that kind of gets things going. Let's bring in a Team Cardinal flagpole that you see at City SC. I can't wait to see how this thing continues to grow, because I think this is great for the game of baseball.
I think it's awesome. And I think that it is wonderful that there is an area now for young people at a ballpark, right? Like, my young person that I have in my household is a 2-year-old. His name is Luca, and we take him to the ballpark, and there's a kids area, a literal kids area where he can go into like what is effectively a bounce house, right? And they have a Build-A-Bear there for my son. They have for people older than me, older generations. Like, they've got areas where they have air conditioning, and they have stuff where it is more like pinkies up type of drinks, right? They've got a little something there for anybody. If you want to go there and you want to have a bar-like atmosphere, hey, Budweiser Terrace is there for you. You can go up there. It's a general admission seating. You've got the $5 Crown Bar with the Busch Light and the Budweiser way, way, way up top. If you are somebody that just really wants to be into the game, well, the lower level section, that's for you, right? Like, you could be right behind home plate. You could be down the line. You get the best views from those specific areas. So everybody's got kind of their place at a baseball game. The one thing that it never used to have is an area for young people that just want to get after it. They want to go there and they want to scream and shout and be super into the baseball game, super enthusiastic about it from the moment that the first pitch is thrown. And now you have that. And it's starting at Busch Stadium. I'm curious to see what this looks like a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. But for right now, Cardinals are capitalizing on what was a really cool opportunity for them. And I think you said it right. They used to sell nostalgia. Now they've got something else to sell as to why you should come to the ballpark each and every night. We'll add one other thing, just as a PSA for anybody that maybe wants to go to some of these games, especially if you're a young person that's listening to this right now and you don't have a ton of money. Been there. I personally would have done something like this in the past. The Cardinals have a ballpark pass that you can purchase. It's like $50. You can go to every game that is over the course of that month. It's $50 for every game. It's a GA ticket, so it's standing room only, so you can either go up to like Budweiser Terrace, or now you can go to this area, the Tarps Off Terrace. So if you want to go to every single Cardinals game at home over the next month and you want to be involved in the Tarps Off Terrace, you can literally do so for $50, which is an unbelievably cost-effective way to have entertainment for like, I don't know, 15 nights over the course of the next month. So if you are somebody that applies to, I highly recommend checking that out. It's probably a lot cheaper than going to 5 or 10 games with an actual ticket over that time, especially if you're sitting in an area that you don't technically need a ticket for.
When you first said a little PSA for all those Cardinal fans, I was like, oh, he is about to have a dad moment and tell them to put sunscreen on. Oh, I'm so glad that you said about this pass. I really thought you were about to have a whole speech on put sunscreen on, which you should do when you're out there. But I was like, man, this guy is so playing into the I'm a father audience. I'm so glad that's where you went.
No, they had the bucket hat giveaway that they did over the other day. I wonder if we will see like on the noses just a bunch of sunscreen in the future.
Beach themed one going with your Cardinal swimsuit. Boom, there we go.
There is a real sellable opportunity if you're the Cardinals to like talk to a sunscreen provider.
Don't they at college nights?
Get it sponsored by sunscreen.
Yeah, and don't they have it like college nights? I know like my high school, they would have theme nights for what you're doing, right? I remember it was always the beach day, right? So all of us in high school would go to the basketball game with like our swim trunks on. So there's plenty of opportunities for it. But man, I really thought you were about to go on a speech about put sunscreen on.
The Tarps Off Terrace, sponsored by Banana Boat. Coming up next, the National League playoff race suddenly feels a little bit more crowded. There's one team in particular that really makes it feel that way. We'll talk about it next year on the Redbird Report. What the hell has happened to the Philadelphia Phillies? I remember talking on this podcast, 2 weeks ago now? And they had fired their manager. They were an absolute disaster. They started out the season 9-19, T-Bone. 9 wins, 19 losses. The pitching was atrocious. It felt like the lineup had suddenly gone stale. And now, here we are, and they're right at 500. Now, they've lost a couple of games in a row against the Cincinnati Reds, so that is worth noting, but they swept the Pittsburgh Pirates, won 2 out of 3 against Boston, won 2 out of 3 against the Athletics, swept the San Francisco Giants. They have been playing some really inspired baseball lately, and the reason that I bring them up is because they were a team that a lot of people, myself included, honestly, had kind of left for dead. And it was, all right, so the Braves are going to make the playoffs. The Dodgers are going to make the playoffs. The Padres appear to be a legitimate playoff threat, despite a lineup which still isn't hitting. This is like 3 consecutive years that the Padres, just with all of that star power, can't find a way to hit consistently. It's insane. But, so those are 3 teams that we thought were going to get in. You'll have the NL Central winner, and now you've got a few spots still left open to potentially get into the postseason. Now it's feeling more crowded. Because if the Phillies are back and they're going to play at this level the rest of the way, I think you can probably assume that they're going to be at minimum in the race for a wild card spot. Add them to the Braves, Dodgers, Padres, as I just mentioned. Now you've got 1 spot for the NL Central winner, and you've got 1 more wild card spot to play with, and that's for basically every team in the NL Central, plus the Diamondbacks, the Nationals, and anybody else that you think still has a prayer to be able to do the rest of the way what the Phillies have done over the last month. How does this influence the way that you see the Cardinals right now, who as of today would technically still maintain that last wild card spot in the National League, T-Bone?
It does make me more concerned about their playoff chances because the Cardinals, and I feel like we've been saying this for 3 years, but the Cardinals' playoff hopes potentially can end by August 3rd on the trade deadline. And the reason that I say that is because if it is 50-50 buy or sell, they will lean sell. I truly believe that. I mean, you're in a rebuild. It was the same thing in the runway season last year. If there's any question of should we be buying or should we be selling, they are going to lean towards sell. Unless it is clear and obvious, we're in the playoff picture and we should be buying to be doing reinforcements on the margins, and then that would convince them to hang on to like O'Brien, JoJo Romero, Dustin May. So their deadline, I shouldn't have said their playoffs are August 3rd. Their deadline is probably about the All-Star break to come up, get close to a decision on what they're going to do. And now that the Phillies look like they're going to be a horse that's going to get back in this race, I'm with you. It looks like if they can sustain this, they're going to get back into the playoff picture. I think the Cubs, Padres are here to stay potentially in this race. You know, the Braves are going to win the East, I still think, and the Dodgers are winning the West. And now I've got this horse that's coming up that's the Philadelphia Phillies that we left for dead. Who do I trust more, the Phillies or the Cardinals, to get into that last spot? I would say Phillies today. And I know that sounds weird because I did write them off for dead. They needed to go on the run that they just did to get back in the race. The Mets haven't done it. The Mets haven't gone on that run. They're dead. They're not going to be a playoff team. They're going to be sellers at the deadline. I'm willing to write that off now, and I feel confident in that. I no longer feel that way about the Phillies, and the Diamondbacks are still in this race. Those are 2 teams that had expectations that if they're close, they're buying. And if you're the Cardinals, if you're close, you're selling. And that's why now that you're starting to see them get back into this race, I think it really hurts their playoff potential this season.
I'm in full agreement. I think the biggest thing that it influences is how Chaim Bloom sees things. Forget how we see it. Look at what Chaim Bloom is going to be making decisions about at the trade deadline. And if he's looking around at like the Phillies with Dave Dombrowski, you think they're not going to add? They're in it. They're not going to add? Okay. Sure. Yeah, for sure. What about that Preller guy? That guy's a madman. He just traded the guy that is now ranked as the number 2 overall prospect in Major League Baseball. No, not the number 2 prospect in the Padres system. No. The number 2 prospect in minor league baseball right now, according to multiple outlets, was traded last year at the deadline, like 6 months ago, by the San Diego Padres for a reliever, for a closer. So that guy, yeah, he's probably going to go out there and add something of significance at the deadline as well. These are your competitors, man, for a spot in the postseason. And that's to mention nothing of the Brewers or the Cubs, who you're also competing directly against both in the division and also for one of those wild card spots. So it's hard to see a scenario in which the Cardinals are aggressively keeping up with those teams. So that means you just have to be that much better as currently constructed than what those teams are going to be. And that's hard for me to foresee. And that is not saying that the Cardinals are a bad team or that the season can't be a success or anything like that. Just when we're talking about, those ultimate goals of can you still reach the postseason, I think it would require a little bit more luck than what I would have anticipated as recently as the last week or two ago. Okay, so what lies ahead? What's coming up for the St. Louis Cardinals? Well, they are about to enter a 3-game series against the Cincinnati Reds. We talked previously, before this last week, about the NL Central run that they were about to go on. It continues with 3 at the Great American Ballpark, and this might be exactly what the doctor ordered for the Cardinals offense. If you think this offense has stunk lately, I don't blame you. It hasn't been a whole lot of fun to watch. There is no ballpark in Major League Baseball this season that has been more kind to major league hitters for home runs than the Great American Ballpark. That's not a surprise to most Cardinals fans. It's been playing that way for a while, but previously you could say, hey, Coors Field, that one's better though for home runs. Nope, not this year. This year, it's the Great American Ballpark, which is number 1. Hits of any other kind, surprisingly, have actually been harder to come by in Cincinnati than at most other parks across the country. So that surprised me a little bit. The ballpark factors there have been in favor of pitchers, but really who is going to benefit from this is the lefties. Lefties have been tearing it up at that ballpark so far this season. So I would once again pay attention to Alec Burleson, JJ Weatherholt, Nolan Gorman. We'll see if Nathan Church is here, and hopefully Bryan Torres. Those would be the guys that I would circle going into the weekend and hope that they're able to get back on track against 3 consecutive right-handed starters. At least that's the way that it's scheduled right now for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, this should be the big weekend for the lefties. And this is I would never want to say that this is a must-win series. Boy, really hurt yourself by dropping 2-3 to Pittsburgh. Because I think we both went into that series going, you're the better team. Take care of business. Take 2-3 against Pittsburgh. You hope to take 2-3 in Cincinnati, and then you get the big dogs of the division. You get the Brewers and the Cubs, and that'll give us a good idea of where you are in this race in the NL Central. Boy, it feels like you really shot yourself in the foot here at home against the Pittsburgh Pirates by dropping 2-3, and now you got to go to the Great American Small Park and try and beat them. Look, the lefties, the offense needs to get right. Because I'm not confident your pitching's going to be able to limit home runs. I know the Reds' offense isn't great. Your rotation's not great. The back end of your bullpen, the mop-up guys in your bullpen, not great either. These are going to be high-scoring games, and this is where the Cardinals need to get back to their identity, which is our offense is going to be the thing that carries us to victory. They're going to do just enough to make sure we leave Cincinnati taking 2 of 3 in this series, and you build some momentum before you go to Milwaukee to take on who might be the class of the division once again in the Brewers.
Remember when we just saw Chris Paddock like a month ago? He's starting tomorrow night against the St. Louis Cardinals. And on the season, he has a nice 0-5 record with a 7.1 ERA.
Yeah, that's not good to look at when you come out of the bullpen before your start.
Yet somehow Brady Singer is right there with him. He is 2-4 with a 6.3 ERA on the season. Lefties have an 1100 OPS against him. And then you finish out the series against Lodolo, who once upon a time I did think was a pretty interesting option for them. It's very small sample size, but opposing hitters have an OPS of 1,000 against him so far this season as well. He's only made a few starts, and in those 3 starts, he's gone basically 5 innings, giving up 3 to 5 runs in every single one of them. So this should be a stretch where your offense is able to put together some consistent at-bats, have some success against a really mediocre to bad pitching staff with Cincinnati. And you mentioned it. I don't feel great about Leahy there. I certainly don't feel great about Palante there. We'll see how Libby's able to respond. To me, this is all about your offense. Can the offense go out there and put up some crooked numbers against the Cincinnati Reds? Huge test this weekend. By the time we talk next, T-Bone, they're going to play against the Milwaukee Brewers as well on the road. That, to me, right now, is the team to beat in the NL Central. I can't believe we're back here, but this is where we've arrived. Their pitching is outstanding. Their offense has apparently produced another star. Superstar, no. Star, though, Bryce Terang has an OPS of like 900 on the season, and he's really good defensively, and he steals a bunch of bags. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, but the Brewers just swept the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley and have regained their status, in my opinion, atop the NL Central.
Yeah, I'll never understand them because I'm with you. I look at their offense, go, this is fine. I look at their rotation, go, who's pitching for them? And the guy has like a 3.3 ERA, and he strikes out the world. So they once again have proven to be the class of the division, especially when they went to Chicago, like you mentioned, and they put an exclamation point on beating them. I watched 2 of those games. They were scoring runs, and they were running all over them. I mean, it looked like the Cubs were being bullied in Wrigley Field. That's what it looked like watching them. They're the class of the division, and it's scary to think that their quote-unquote slow start came when they were down Churio, down Yelich, and dealing with injuries to their offense with Vaughn being out as well. And now those guys are coming back, and they feel like they're going to be the team to beat in this NL Central.
Again, it happens every single season. I underestimate them. They make me look stupid about 6 weeks into the year, and then here we are.
If you want to feel better about yourself, they make both of us look stupid in the regular season, and then I fall for them in October. Well, you're telling me, no, they're not winning in October, and they've yet to win in October.
Yeah, I've at least maintained my consistency there. All right. If you guys want to check out anything else from 101 ESPN, they've got the Last Minute Blues podcast. It's available for you right now at the YouTube page, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. We've got all of our other podcasts from the shows on the station as well. I know T-Bone and I spoke with Ollie Marmol, Cardinals manager, in studio on BK and Ferrario earlier this week. So if you want to check out that interview, you're a Cardinals fan, if you made it this far into the podcast, highly recommend doing so. He gave his perspective on why he pulled Michael McGreevy, also explained the situation with the catchers right now and why you haven't seen a call-up of Jimmy Crooks just yet. A lot of really good stuff there, and explained how all of this Tarps Off situation came to be. So highly recommend checking out that interview. You can check that out over there. For Tanner Hendrickson and Zane over on the video side of things, I'm Brandon Kiley. Thank you so very much for tuning into the Redbird Report. We'll talk to you very soon.
Find every episode of the Redbird Report with Brandon Kiley and Tanner Hendrickson on YouTube or at 101ESPN.com.